A very warm welcome to TechSparks 2021, and our topic of discussion today is building a safe and robust digital India. Before I introduce you to our panelists, let me just give you a quick introduction to set the context of this conversation. With a multi-fold increase in digital adoption, India is the second largest consumer internet market. The government has taken major initiatives under the Digital India program to provide internet access and connectivity to all areas. And one of the biggest and the most visible change is seen in the adoption of UPI and is built around the digital payments that are starting in many new categories of business, which include a lot of things like fintech, lending, and also enabling the untapped SME as well as new to credit segments. To talk about this, about building the safe and digital India, we have with us Gaurav Anand, who is the founder and CEO at Namaste Credit, and we have Venkatesh Sundar, who is popularly known as Venki, who is the founder and CMO at Induspace. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us today. I want to begin by asking you a little bit about how the whole digital system is shaping up and what we really can do to further strengthen the sector, considering that, we need to build a robust and sustainable digital India. So what kind of measures should we take to really increase investments or build a stronger and more robust digital infrastructure? Let me begin with you, Gaurav.
Sure. First of all, thank you, Your Story, for having us on this very apt topic this day. In this day and age, there's been a lot of talk about fintech, funding. There's a lot of talk government initiatives for last 6-7 years, and literally, India is leapfrogging, in a lot of areas, particularly in the digital economy area, vis-a-vis the rest of the world. So very exciting times and great to be part of this ecosystem. You rightly said that there's been a lot of government initiatives, in the past 7 odd years. In fact, I think this is a broader, play that the government is looking at how to make informal economy more formal, right? And all the digital footprints and digital initiatives the government has undertaken in the last 7 to 8 years are completely moving in that direction, right? Having said that, I think there've been some learning through the journey thus far as well. I think they're going to be, as an economy, as a digital, nimble ecosystem, we will continue to make mistakes and learn from it. Now, I think some of the areas that we definitely need a little bit more push is the, without, overemphasizing, is the investment. Like, I think we all look at the headline news that UPI has touched record numbers month on month, but there are also very heavy and very severe rejection or a failure rates, right? So while the top line looks very impressive, I think there is still a way to go to improve the overall throughput. Right, because we're still at an early stage. Yes, the COVID has been a good inflection point. We're still scratching the surface, and it's very important for all the stakeholders to build trust in this initiative. Right, in the first 4-5 years, the fear factor, particularly among the SMEs that we largely cater to, was that government is coming after me to tax me more. Right, that's why everybody dreaded the demonetization and the initial GST initiatives. Slowly and gradually, this is becoming more internalized. That yes, these initiatives will help the businesses themselves as well, and they can get access to formal credit, they can get access to more visibility about their product, and they don't have to be under the radar, right? So some of these initiatives are definitely in the right way, but investment into making sure that we are building a robust tech and digitally savvy pipeline is extremely important. Otherwise, these initiatives can become a spiral, a downward spiral, if they don't start meeting the expectations and building the trust factor. So for me, I mean, I think from a fintech perspective, from our vantage point, while we welcome these initiatives, we need to be, optimistically look at how private and public sector both can contribute in making sure the adoption built on trust and sustainable products continues on an upswing. So yeah.
Right, Venkatesh, I'd like to bring you in out here to understand your take on the whole digital infrastructure and how we can build a more sustainable and comprehensive digital infrastructure in India?
I will look at and I will want the embracing the digitization companies to do it in a trustworthy manner. The keyword I picked up from what Gaurav mentioned was the word trust. So when they embrace digitization, the trigger point for embracing digitization is, of course, especially post-COVID, as an inflection point I mentioned, is not because of choice, but because of a must-have need for survival. But when you embrace digitization, it is for speed, convenience to the consumer for doing certain things better. But really, what the businesses has to do, and I'm going to re-stress the point of being a capitalistic by heart and thinking, the businesses, if they innovate to provide the trust and the core promise of not just doing one aspect of doing certain thing digitally better, but actually the core promise. As an example, if it is insurance, you can get an insurance and a claim and everything done within half an hour. But because of adapting the digitization platform, can you do the claim settlement also better? Because that is the core promise of where the customer delight will be provided, especially as an insurance sector. Or lending, the kind of business that Namaste Credit themselves are in. The speed of disbursement is certainly one key in terms of a new to credit segment or any SMEs wanting to loan, using technologies to provide that innovation and speed of doing an approval is certainly one aspect. But also as a business, as an overall in the lending, how do you reduce the non-performing assets using technology as a key value proposition is going to be very, very important. So my key point for building a digital India in a sustained manner is the companies that are adopting digitization, if they adopt it not just for convenience and speed, but to actually deliver better customer delight in the traditional business in a better and sustainable manner, the consumers will start adopting it as a better channel, and that itself will drive the digitization in a sustainable manner.
Considering that this is a fintech space and security is very, very important when it comes to transactions, data, and all of the above things when it comes to the whole fintech and financial services space. So I want to begin with you, Gaurav, to try to understand what it takes to design a secure digital experience specifically for fintech.
Fintechs are largely catering to two sides of the coin here, right? One is the consumer, which in this case, particularly in our case, are the SMEs, who are the most underbanked, most most severely most severe paucity of funds for these customers who are always in need of credit. And on the other side, it's the lenders, right, who supply this credit. So trust factor is the most, I would say, underbelly of building a sustainable adoption, right? And from let's look at both the sides individually. For the SMEs who have not experienced this kind of a sudden digital explosion, that they have accustomed in the last two odd years, suddenly been asked to have been given a choice that you don't have to visit a branch. Right, lending in India is still a very branch-led network. Why? I mean, same SME who hires a cab on a click of a button. Why does he has to go to 10, 20, 30 kilometers away for a branch to submit his basic documents, right? And suddenly when this kind of a customer has been given an option, a choice to digitally apply for a loan, digitally get his current account, savings account being set up, there's a reckoning, right? There's a moment of reckoning for them. And when, on the other hand, you have these news coming the negative news about the bank accounts getting hacked, the credit cards being misused, the information getting leaked. I mean, there is a kind of conflicting features and reality bites, right? That's where it's very important to give these customers, just when they're taking the baby steps, to feel assured that their documents, that their information, that the critical information about the businesses are being kept confidential, right? And there's no potential misuse of it. At least there is no there are tools available through which this risk can be minimized, right? So that's on the demand side. From the supply side, I mean, banking is a heavily regulated industry overall, right? RBI wields a lot of power, right, and lot of importance on making sure the underlying information on the SME or the customers are super sacrosanct. And banks, the most dreaded outcome for any banker is to be on the wrong side of this compliance, right? So whenever we go when we try to digitally transform a bank, the most rampant, the most profound discussion invariably ends up on the how will you make sure the data of my customer is secure? How will you make sure that you're complying with the RBI policy? And I would not like to be on the wrong side of it. So I think it's a non-negotiable, it's a non-trivial, and it's a big elephant in the room that needs to be addressed upfront. And as a product company, as a tech company who's addressing such a large ecosystem, both on the demand and the supply side, the first thing that we did, and the biggest use case of our external equity that we have raised in the company, is to make sure that we are well beefed up on our security, right? And we are also cognizant that we cannot build the right all the necessary security protocols and tools ourselves. And that's where we end up partnering with experts like in the space, where we have to rely on their expertise. Our expertise is to understand the client requirement, build the product, make sure it is a frictionless product, and work with the specialists to ensure that the security is deeply ingrained and the right tools are built so that any security lapses can be either completely mitigated or enough flags for us to take a preemptive action. So in the nutshell, I think this is absolutely non-trivial and a given fact that both demand and supply needs a surety on the security of the products being digital products being offered to them. And in such a fast-moving environment, it's very important to partner with the specialists because not every fintech can do everything, right? So the collaboration is the essence of the day, and that's where we love to participate and partner with the like-minded specialist people, to take care of our security requirements.
Right. Venkatesh, I want to bring you in to understand what kind of gaps do you see are present in the whole digital security system when it comes to, businesses out there, specifically in the fintech space. So if you could identify, say, 2 or 3 gaps that you see are present in this day and age.
Before I get to that, I would also say that some of the financial scams or any scams that has happened, it's not like they happen only in the digital world, right? Any system that you put in place will have loopholes. If you go and look at some of the biggest financial scams that has happened, it happened pre-digitization era in the paper and process. But there is a perception that when you have this behavioral change to move to a digital world and there's a new behavior, we had to build the consumer confidence that this new is actually more secure, more traceable, and it also enables you to deal with incidences in a much more faster, quicker, and course correction manner, as opposed to the traditional business. So it is more about the perception of security and building consumer confidence that also has to be taken into account while you're building it. Now, some of the biggest gaps in the digitization that you asked me specifically about is while companies are embracing digitization, companies like Namaste Credit has been trailblazer to understand that security has to be built ground up. Not everything can be done by your own, and partner with whoever can provide it while they focus on the core. The biggest gap is actually, I would say, the skill gap, and especially application security. Central to any digitization is application, and securing those applications is imperative for digitization to happen smoothly. And when you're securing it, there is no bulletproof solution. It is actually helping you deal with situations in a much more trustworthy, transparent manner to do the course correction without the consumers or the stakeholders being impacted as much. So I would say identifying the problem, taking those steps to build it ground up, and accept the fact that this is not news, and also do the perception management that build the consumer confidence that it's not a new risk. It's just a new channel of risk, but the same risk existed in any other process as well. But this behavior change, build the trust, and enable them to adopt this behavior actually is more secure than the traditional processes, in my point of view.
I want to ask both of you a question in terms of what would be perhaps the best practices that businesses or organizations should follow to become more cyber resilient at this point in time, because safety and safeguarding their data privacy is a very, very important thing. So if both of you could quickly give me 2 points in terms of how businesses can adopt best practices to ensure this kind of safeguard and become cyber resilient. Gaurav?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, we very strongly believe that this has to be a day one conversation. While just when you're ideating from a starter's perspective, when we were getting started, we realized that we are in financial services and we'll be dealing with a lot of customer private information. Hence, and plus the fact that we came from a corporate experience where these things are taken very seriously. So it's very important that this has to be a day one conversation. How you're going to tackle, what investments are required, what product features are factored in your MVP towards the security. And don't make it a day 10 conversation, have it a day one conversation, right? For any startup, right? Or even when we are building a new product, that's part of the first day discussion on the product roadmap. So that's the first one. Acknowledge that this is a non-trivial and has to be a part of a day one conversation. Second component is that, identify the partners very, very quickly. Not given all the startups are always running thin on resources, you can't do everything yourself. Very, very critical to have right partners identified as part of your initial journey itself, and then delegate the roles very, very clearly. So those are the two things that we look at when either for any startup, and also when we are building a new product internally for any of our clients, security becomes the centerfold discussion on day one.
Right, Venkatesh?
Yeah, I think Gaurav covered a lot of it. I think I would say if there is one thing the businesses has to look at as a best practice, anything that they are providing as a service, a digital service to their stakeholders, assume that certain things can go wrong and proactively start with doing a risk assessment and risk protection program from day one, as Gaurav mentioned. So that, because hackers are doing the same thing, or the bad actors are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to identify the risk, find out the loopholes and exploit it. So before they do it, as if every businesses like Namaste Credit makes it part of the day one conversation, they will have the risk assessment, the risk mitigation, and the continuous risk monitoring as an integral part of their service, so that they can stay, because they have to worry only about their applications, whereas the hackers or the bad guys, they are spreading the net. So you can always be one step ahead of them or have an unfair advantage. To make this an integral part, risk assessment, risk protection, and risk monitoring, the cycle continues as an integral part of that service, is the one line golden nugget I can probably provide to any digital business.
Right. Specifically in the fintech space, as lending and so many other new verticals open up, we're seeing so many businesses launch so many interesting categories and verticals. What is the kind of evolution do you think will happen in this space, specifically when it comes to cybersecurity, making your business resilient, considering that there are so many new launches that have been planned every month, every other month by fintech companies? So just wanted to understand from your perspective, Gaurav, how do you see the evolution happening in this space?
Yeah, I mean, the evolution is, I think, this whole cognizance of having a product that takes care of the security of the end customer is just the way products are evolving. This concept is also evolving, right? In fact, because we also cater to over 100,000 MSMEs where their private data is relying and has been shared with us. We're also constantly thinking, how can we preempt some of the potential threats that would come to us or may come to us in future, and how to be future ready for it, right? Like, just to give you an example, we are also exploring how we can use some parts of blockchain technology which offers some very strong resilience towards the potential frauds or data leakage. How can we use such technology in making sure that the whole value chain that where we fit into it is secured and can be easily scalable, right? So the evolution is I think each one of us who are part of this value chain have to constantly think forward. Like Venki mentioned about, while we are building products, the hackers have their ears and eyes open. They're looking at companies who are growing fast. They're looking at such companies who are sitting on a large information base of the underlying customer. How can they get access to it very, very easily? In fact, there have been news about some of the largest private banks in the country who have left a bit of a gaping hole to let some of these hackers just walk into it and cause havoc. I think the evolution is a joint responsibility. It's not an individual responsibility. Parallelly, businesses who will be who can think and look forward in anticipation of such potential threats and be ready for it. There are hard technologies which are like blockchain is a great example. It hasn't taken off very well in India yet, but I think it's a matter of time because all the cryptos that we talk about, we hear about, and making all the headline news is all growing so rapidly because of the underlying tech is blockchain. So how can the same tech be used on multiple other use cases for the digital economy to take off and give and take the evolution forward based so that we are better prepared for some of these potential hacks? See, one thing which we kind of overlook a lot of times is that the more the digital economy is becoming prevalent, the more risk we are being posed. If something happens to the central repository, a lot of things can blow up. So there has to be a cognizance of this fact. Like a virus started from one country and emanated very quickly to the other rest of the world. Digital, viruses can also fly very, very quickly. So the transmission rates are much shorter now. So it's extremely critical for us to, project these and be ready for such pandemic attacks on our digital economy as well. So that's how at least I feel how this evolution will happen across the board.
I want to add one thing because he used the analogy of pandemic there. So while the digital economy has a risk of pandemic, application security and partnering with application security expert can be viewed as the COVID vaccination equivalent for any digitization initiatives, right? So that you can build your digital immune system better as we progress.
Correct. Yeah, that completes the whole analogy, Venki. So.
Okay, Venki, I want to bring you in at this point in time to understand what kind of evolution can we expect in the fintech space, specifically when it comes to investments, right? When you look at businesses investing into cybersecurity and risks, do you think the investment numbers are going to go up considering the kind of threats that are existing in the cyberspace?
Absolutely. I think, when you say investment, I say investment not as in the traditional VCs. And we have been bootstrapped for the longest of time. It's only recently we raised some investment. So I say, when somebody asks me what is the investment, I say my investors are my customers. So the demand for cybersecurity is going to go up. And hence customers are going to do business only with those with whom they trust. And proactive security is going to be an integral part of that building trust. And hence the consumers of those digital services are going to drive the demand and create a ripple effect and an amplification effect of more and more investments where they give money to the businesses that is solving this problem better. And then the investors will line up because there is money to be made because customers are buying this. And then, of course, the investment like you are talking about will also happen. But real drive for investment will be driven through consumer behavior and consumers putting security as a must-have feature for any digital service that they're subscribing to. So it's a business enabler more than just risk mitigation.
Right. Gaurav, would you agree with that?
No, absolutely. And I just to add to that, I think it's not just I think this is the industry-wide trend now. In fact, if you pick up some of the largest financial institutions globally, folks like JP Morgan, they have earmarked budgets of billions of dollars to ensure that their security is beefed up so that their clients are protected. And they are not getting penalized by the regulators, right? I think while there's a direct reputational risk, there are also severe economic pitfalls that these large institutions are consistently being penalized by the regulators. I mean, today regulators are, and for any data leakages or data not being adhered properly, they've been getting, banks are getting penalized for hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's better that you rather have a kitty that you're going to be investing into security upfront, rather than having instead being penalized and then having a wake-up call. So this is across the industry, right? This is the industry, even in the social media space. I mean, look at all the the so-called the largest tech companies, be it Apple, be it Google, be it Amazons of the world. Look at their budgets towards security, etc. Right? And globally, there is a drive to make sure that these big boys who largely drive the technology globally are well behaved, not just in terms of ensuring a fair competition, but also making sure that the products are not misusing and they are not creating avenues for others to misuse their platform as well. So the responsibility is much more deeper now, not just because you have a great product, people are using it, and you expect the user to safeguard yourself. No, as a product owner, you have to make sure that you do not allow miscreants to flourish, on your products as well, and the responsibility lies on these the tech companies globally. So this is
on that point, Gaurav. I remember in the same Your Story platform about a year back, we did a panel discussion, and PayPal country head Nath Parmeshwaran. It still resonates in my head. The quote he made: "PayPal is a payments company, but internally and operationally, we think of ourselves as a security company." Because for the payment to go from one to another, there is a trust factor of the consumer. So we have to build the entire. So it's something that's a quote that I can put in here, and Nath will be happy that I quoted him.
All right. On that note, gentlemen, thank you very much for your insights. I think it's been a very interesting conversation, and the audience listening to us will have much more perspective on how cybersecurity operates and how the fintech space is a very important space when it comes to cyber threats and other security issues. Thanks so much for your time, and thank you so much for being a part of TechSparks 2021.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having us over here.